everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas, your disembodied voice for this evening. With me, as always, is the man from the great white north, where everyone is great and almost everyone is white, Johnny Maloney. Also, coming fresh off an underwear modeling job, Austin Yursky. Guys, how you been?
Really white.
Really white.
Are you writing these beforehand?
Some of it I'm not writing it, but I'm thinking about it beforehand. Austin, I don't know if you've noticed the pattern, but every week during the introduction, you're in a state of undress. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I mean, that's my natural state. So why lie to the audience? All
right. Well, guys, I think we should just jump right into this because, something really amazing has happened, and that is we have totally, without question, discovered that the Loch Ness Monster is totally real. Absolutely, without question. Basically, what occurred this week was over the weekend, there was this image and it was making the rounds on the I'm sorry, I can't say this without laughing. The official Loch Ness Monster fan club. Basically, they captured it on Apple Maps, and from above, it looks like there's something under the water, and it's all very scary, and it could be Nessie, but you know what? It could also totally be, and it almost certainly is. It's a boat. It's just a boat. It's totally a boat. But I think people just want to see what they want to see. People see what they want to see.
Really? The first time I saw it, I immediately went, "That's a wave."
Really? You didn't even think boat. You just thought wave.
Yeah, it's pretty clearly a wave to me. I'm sorry.
The first time I saw it, I thought to myself, "Who the hell uses Apple Maps?"
Yeah, what is that? Is that a thing? When I saw that it was being used by Apple Maps, I'm like, did they misspell Google Maps?
All I know about Apple Maps is when it rolled out, it was sending people into ditches. Like, it was so wrong as to be comical.
Oh.
I don't blame Apple for having, a competitive map service because I don't own any Apple products, but it occurs to me that Google having competing, operating systems / mobile devices on the market these days, you might want to roll back your support for your competitor so that people are all like, ooh, which one do I want? The one with Apple Maps or the one with, all the Google and the YouTubes?
Is Apple Maps just like Google Maps except more expensive and hipstery?
And not good?
Yeah.
Yes.
That too. I joke because I don't ever buy Apple products. Basically, to me, the idea of having, and I know I'm going to start a stupid flame war just by saying this. The idea of me having an Apple computer as opposed to, your basic Windows OS computer means that I'll have something that looks shinier, but won't have, how do I put this? It's not sort of the universal constant, if that makes any sense. So I won't be able to just access nearly everything I ever want to.
Yeah, you're the guy going around with the European plug saying, "Is this going to work in your? Do you guys have outlets for this here?"
Windows is the industry standard, so that's not weird. I mean, I have an iPod, but that's it.
Yeah. You know what? I just realized. Yeah, I do own an Apple product, and it's just my iPod. I guess that's to me that's the only standard thing that I can use for that's Apple. I mean, I didn't want to buy a Zune.
I own a Zune.
Do you? What's it like?
It's actually pretty damn good, to tell you the truth. I mean, I bought it back in 2006 or 2007. So it's like 8 years old now or something, and it still holds an 8 to 10 hour charge, depending on how many tracks I skip or something like that. But this was back in the day when Apple had that little runny circle thing where it was if you wanted to scroll down, you put your finger on the racetrack and you were like, whee! In circles. And I'm an audiophile. I have hundreds and hundreds of CDs. I think I cracked the 1,000 mark some time ago. I don't even buy music that often online. I have a collection. I've got how many CDs?
How's your vinyl?
Actually, I don't have that much vinyl, and the reason why is that needles are super fucking expensive. And also, I never really bought into the whole, ooh, the sound is warmer. I'm like, okay, if you buy a CD, as long as you don't, like, go to town on it with an ice pick, the quality will at least remain over the lifetime of its usefulness. But, like, vinyl is like, okay, now you're not allowed to store them like this because, you know, that'll compress the vinyl, and then you're going to have to buy fresh needles that you need to replace every 8 minutes, or else the song's going to sound like shit, buddy. And I was like, that's a level of obsession I'm not prepared to engage in.
I lost all my vinyl records and my record player in the move. Basically, we could only take so much for reasons. So I lost all of that in my move. So now that I've lost all my jazz records, I don't know how to tell everyone that I'm really cool. It's just so annoying. I'm gonna have to get by with like an original personality or something.
But the Zune has buttons on it. So it's like I've got like 7,283 songs on my Zune, right? And I was like, when I was buying an MP3 player, I was like, what if I want to find that one song? And then I'm like, do I want to scroll wheel through all that shit? Or do I maybe just want to hold a button down and wait until it gets to the O's or something?
I like how this started as a conversation about cryptozoology and became about audio formats and operating systems.
Nobody's interested in the Loch Ness Monster unless he's pulling a Bigfoot behind him on water skis. Let's be honest now. Come on. That would be news. If it was a photo of the Loch Ness Monster water skiing with the Sasquatch, that would be like, everybody would be like, whoa, that's your proof.
Here's what I'm confused about when it comes to the Loch Ness Monster, besides everything else. The people have been saying that the Loch Ness Monster has been there. I think like that old photograph that is clearly a hoax and absolutely not true.
The dude who took that photograph copped to it being a hoax on like his deathbed. He was like, "Guess what? Fooled you, fuckers."
Yeah, that was like 50, 60 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, do people think that the Loch Ness Monster is just immortal? Because I mean, even if like when he took that photo, and let's pretend that the Loch Ness Monster is real and that's totally the Loch Ness Monster, this plesiosaur or whatever in the photo, do people think that the Loch Ness Monster just has a very, very, very long lifespan?
He's like Elvis.
Either it reproduces through budding or it's a vampire. There's the only two options.
Yeah, what about its food supply, too? Because, I mean, obviously, if you've got, a creature that's that large, you would assume that it would need, like, lots and lots of food to survive. So, wouldn't there be, like, weird dry spells of fishing?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing is clearly bullshit. I'm pretty sure, isn't there? It's like there's that guy who said he'll give $1 million to anyone who can prove magic is real, and no one's ever done it. I'm sure there's a similar reward.
James, the Randy found James Randi. Is that you're talking about?
I assume.
Randi? Yeah, the James Randi Educational Foundation. $1 million for the existence of the paranormal.
Yeah, something like that. Like, I'm sure there's some kind of reward fund if you prove Nessie's real. Someone should have done it by now. Like, it's fun to think about it, but, like, no one actually believes it's real, right? Like, no one that you would invite to dinner.
Guys, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are actually 2 different reality shows on television right now about Bigfoot.
We had the reality discussion already.
No, we need to talk about this. I mean, if we're going to talk about cryptozoology, we need to talk about how it has pervaded into reality television and into the popular consciousness. And there are 2 different Bigfoot shows. One is just a bunch of guys out, I think, in the Pacific Northwest, searching for Bigfoot, and this show documents their lifelong struggle to find not just Bigfoot, like he's one guy. They always say, I've never actually watched the show, but I have seen clips because I find this funny. They actually say a Bigfoot, like there are so many, like it's a species. Bigfoot is actually a species, and they're looking for big feet. They're looking for big feet. And there's another show that's a competition. And I'm almost positive it's called the $1 Million Bigfoot Hunt or something like that. And it's hosted by Dean Cain from Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. That's what our culture is like. I think that's fascinating. Well, it's what our American culture is like. I think you're saved here, Johnny.
I don't think that's necessarily true. There are plenty of people in Canada that the untamed wilderness of the Great White North that are like, yeah, I mean, like it could totally be. I know a guy who is absolutely convinced that, that the Sasquatch probably exists and it exists in the Canadian wilderness. And I have been to a dinner party with this guy.
Johnny, do you know the difference between a Sasquatch and a Yeti?
Is it regional?
Yes, it actually is. A Sasquatch is in the forest and Yeti is in the mountains. It's weird that I know this, and I wanted to share that with you.
I thought it might be that.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about as it pertains to either cryptozoology or the Zune before Johnny takes us away into something that's both funny and frightening?
I really like to say chupacabra.
It's pretty cool. It's good.
Chupacabra. If let's say the Sasquatch did exist, how would you want to fight it?
Okay. I thought no. I actually. My God, you're doing transitioner material.
I'm trying. You're not making the.
You went through
just
Leon.
Awkward.
Leon went through the 5 stages of grief there. He was like, oh God.
Okay, I can deal with this. Well, what I'm insinuating is that perhaps to get into a fist fight with a Sasquatch on your own would be hilarious. Stupid, but hilarious. Well, I can't say that it's directly on the minds of the people making it, but apparently the U.S. military is developing something that would make it really quite possible for you to get into a fistfight with a Sasquatch. It's called the Talos suit, the Tactical Assault Light Operator suit. Sorry, not the Talos suit, the Talo suit, or the Talos, or something, however you want to pronounce it. Well, this has been in development for some time for people who are like, hey, this is, like weird new science and stuff like that. Some of the technology has kind of been like tertiarily used to like help disabled people walk again or things like that. But I mean, there's I guess an old cliche where it's like, it doesn't really become new science until the military gets behind it. So this new suit, that people are like, holy shit, this is basically like Iron Man, is this super strong, super fast, like X-ray infused, heat sensor vision, bulletproof, like outer layers, like they're going full on Iron Man for this. And this last week, the U.S. military has actually released a list of all of the collaborators and contributors that are working on the suit technology. Not surprisingly, of course, there's a whole bunch of defense companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, etc., as well as like a bunch of research institutions such as some universities or Blackbird Technology, etc. But what I kind of want to talk about here is there's some really weird companies that are involved in this collaboration. Like, for example, Adidas is involved. Nike is involved. NPR, National Public Radio, they're involved. My favorite, the Red Bull Air Force. What do you guys think the Red Bull Air Force has to contribute to, like, an Iron Man suit that the military wants to use?
Well, I assume it's a funding thing. This actually reminds me of here's a reference. This reminds me of the movie Species 2, because in Species 2, great film. The United States doesn't have, all the money in the world to send rockets to the moon. So on the space shuttle that goes there in Species 2, there's a bunch of ads on the side of the space shuttle. And in my mind, when I was watching that, as a youngster, I thought, that's stupid. And then a second later, I'm like, that's brilliant. Because then we could actually fund our NASA program.
Yeah, Leon, in what backwards-ass universe doesn't the U.S. government have enough money to put people into space on their own?
Oh. We made ourselves sad.
I'm sad.
Yeah. So anyway, Iron Man suit.
Heroes to me when I was a kid. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of hilarious, I think. Wouldn't it be great to see troops go into war in these fucking Iron Man suits that have these, like, Red Bull logos on the front of them?
How useful do we think that's going to be, like, tactically? Because usually, like, sci-fi weaponry, like, a lightsaber, like, you're just as, likely to chop your own hands off using it, or like a Gundam or something, which would just get shot the fuck up. Like, none of that stuff's actually practical. Do you think an Iron Man suit is more so?
Well, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going to put, like, jets on these things or anything like that, but I do honestly believe that the tech is there. They're not going to give it to the Grunt. I mean, Jesus Christ, they won't even give the Grunt body armor these days, but there's going to be, like, I don't know, 50 guys in the military that get these suits, and it's like, okay, we're going to bring a dude in. And they're like, is that the dude? And then the dude, like, jumps through a wall and gives all the troops Red Bull.
It seems like it'd be more useful for, like, I don't know, bomb disposal people or something to have, if you're going to have, like, a power armor division. Like, don't you think? That's the first thing that comes to mind.
You're such a killjoy.
I'm just saying, I don't see it as, like, them kicking in doors with a SWAT team in fucking Iron Man garb. Like, that's ridiculous.
No, there's gonna be, like, one dude, and he's gonna have a Red Bull logo on his chest, and people will be like, oh no, it's Red Bull Iron Man!
But when do they send him in? Just for any old situation?
After the drone strikes.
Okay. Oh, we're just gonna have an entirely robotic military, just drones and Iron Man suits.
I'm pretty sure it takes over.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's some Skynet bullshit. That can't end well.
Well, I mean, eventually.
For now, we got some really cool movie-inspired armor, though.
Nah, you know what? It's Transcendence bullshit now. Because Johnny Depp put that movie out.
I don't know what that movie is. You'll have to explain that to me.
I don't know. Johnny Depp becomes a computer or something?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Neither did I.
Yeah, it flopped. I haven't seen it either.
So neither did America.
I guess
not. It's not doing well.
Oh.
Which is why now it's more powerful in the zeitgeist than ever.
Oh. Okay. It just the description you gave of it it's the same one for Lawnmower Man.
Don't you guys exactly? Don't you guys know that in this culture of haters now, that the worse something does, the more popular it is?
Is that why The Room is so popular?
I assume so.
Okay.
It can't be because it was good, because it
Leon.
was.
Leon, have you ever read the original story, The Lawnmower Man?
I actually have not. I'm afraid not.
It has nothing to do with the movie. The Stephen King sued to have his name taken off of it. It's not even close. It's about like a satyr, the mythological creature.
Yeah, I think so.
It's about a woman who's handcuffed to her bed and accidentally kills her husband with the internet, and then becomes the internet.
Are we just gonna make fun of Stephen King on every episode? Is that gonna be our thing?
I hope so.
Okay. I'm down for it. I was just asking.
I just think it's hilarious. It's like a 5-page short story that has nothing to do with that movie about someone becoming like a digital god, which I saw 20 years ago.
But the graphics, Austin. The graphics. And more importantly, the Super Nintendo adaptation of the movie, adaptation of the book.
Which is even less, has less to do than the original story.
Sometimes adaptations, it's kind of like playing telephone. Once you get to sort of the end of the line, there's absolutely nothing left from the original.
I actually want to talk about adaptations for a little bit, if you guys don't mind, because, I don't know, do you guys watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the latest episode?
I sure did, and
Betcha.
Even though I have not gotten to that part in the books, I'm in the middle of the first book. Even though I haven't gotten to that part, bits and pieces of it has been spoiled for me, and I thought that scene was going to go really differently.
I'm in a weird spot right now because I stopped reading the books after number 3. Because I finished book 3, and there were some character lines that I just didn't have the patience for. I was like, I'm so fucking sick of this person, this person, this person, and this person. And the TV show was just about to start, so I was like, you know what, I'll put this 4th book off to the side, and if I discover that I enjoy the television show characters that I hate in the books more, then I'll just stick with the TV show. And it turns out that I did. So I was like, fuck it. I'm not reading like half a book that I don't like just so I can get to the half a book I do like. And there's all this shit happening right now in this new season that was in the last book that I read, but then a bunch of other shit that hasn't happened yet that's in the book that I didn't read. So I'm like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here. Wait, I don't remember this part, but this is really familiar. Didn't this happen yet? I thought this part was... And it's fucking me up.
Yeah, I haven't read any of the books, but I'm aware of the changes they've made, and I just think it's an interesting conversation to be had about staying faithful to source material. I don't have any problem with deviating from it if you have a better idea, or if it works better in the medium that you're adapting something into, but change for change's sake. Like, I don't want to spoil what happens, but they made a change that seems... hateful for no particular reason.
I know, when they rickrolled me right in front of the episode, I was so disappointed.
I would actually be pretty happy with that. That'd be pretty good. Do either of you guys have strong feelings one way or the other about changing things?
Well, to me, here's how I feel about adaptations, and I don't want to specifically talk about what happened on Game of Thrones just because it kind of squeaks me out a touch. But I will talk about adaptations in general. Here's how I feel: if you make an adaptation of something that is exactly like the previous version, to me, there's almost no point in doing it. There's almost no point in this even existing because that version already exists. All you've added with a movie adaptation of a novel are pictures. And to me, if you're going to adapt something, there has to be sort of a point beyond what would that person look like besides the image I already have in my mind. And I'm not saying that you have to completely change everything. But there has to be purpose. I mean, in a movie adaptation, when people complain that this wasn't faithful to the novel, two things about that. First, again, there's almost no point except did you really want to know what actor they would cast in the role of the person who you've already had that image in your head. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this: when someone has to make a screenplay, when someone is hired to write a screenplay for an adapted work, there are rules they have to follow. It can only be so many pages long. One page is supposed to equal about 1 minute of screen time, which means the studio is going to kind of insist that this screenplay is no more than 120 pages. And the book is probably like 300, 400, 500 pages. And you also it has to follow a 3-act structure. A book can sort of meander and go off in wonderful places, and that's kind of why I like literature sometimes more than film and television. Sometimes, not always. But movies, where the 3-act structure is sort of ingrained in us, we expect it. We expect there to be a climax at a certain point. We expect something amazing to happen somewhere right around that 100-minute mark. We expect the protagonists to hit their lowest point almost exactly 2/3 of the way through the film, and it's almost impossible to create a completely faithful scene-by-scene adaptation of a novel into a film, or even into a television show. I mean, going back to Game of Thrones briefly, if you're going to adapt a television show, it just having read half of one of the books, it can't be the same, because there's these huge chapters that focus on this one character and their point of view of something in the book, but that would take up like half an hour of screen time, and then another half an hour. And basically, if you watch an episode of Game of Thrones that was like exactly faithful to the novel, you'd be watching like 2 or 3 chapters, and then all your favorite characters, you'd have to wait like 4 episodes to get to them. I mean, this episode that happened recently, the one good thing about it is that it hit on, at least briefly, at least for a few minutes, all of the major plot lines that are going on, almost all of the major characters, which is hard to do. So anyway, what my long story short point here is that you can't make an exactly faithful adaptation, so you might as well change things around a bit.
And that's why Iron Man.
Bringing it back.
Did you not have any? Did you agree with those thoughts, Johnny, or just
I think
agnostic?
he pretty much, no, I mean, he pretty much sounded it out. Everybody seems to not like it so well when you basically copy something and then just say, oh, hey, look, it's the movie. Oh, hey, look, it's the book. So there's got to be some kind of variance that plays to the strengths in each particular medium. Like it's always bothered me that video games have been trying much harder to be like movies, or even to go deeper than that. When you get video games that are like movie properties, licensed properties, and all they do is retell the movie story. It's dull. Arguably one of the best movie adaptation video games, and it was only barely so, was when Warner Brothers rebooted the Batman series with Christian Bale, and then was like, hey, make this game called Arkham Asylum. And it had nothing to do with the movies, but god damn it, those games. Tight!
I definitely agree with that. I just think, because I don't know if you guys are reading the same articles I am, but it seems like people are extremely upset anytime anything is changed, though. So how do you balance that? How do you keep the original fans and the purists happy while also making the adaptation worthwhile?
In my mind, if you change something and it completely and it's sort of inconsequential, but makes the movie version cooler, more interesting, or it fits a movie structure better, then that's fine. But in the case of if you completely change a character's outlook or ruin a character by making them do something despicable when they didn't do that in the book, for example.
Like maybe Rorschach in the Watchmen movie? You know what? He didn't shoot that guy in the book.
Okay, and that's definitely whatever, and that's definitely an example of that. The other thing people say about Watchmen is that, especially the super extended long director's cut, I actually heard like the NPR review of that, and the reviewer said, this director was almost a little too faithful to the comic book. I mean, obviously, to us, me and you, Johnny, hadn't read it. I don't know if you read it, Austin, but there were a few notable differences, obviously. But Snyder, instead of turning it into a 3-act structure, it was almost scene for scene, even though some of the larger aspects of it were switched about a bit. So, I mean, in that case, it was almost a case of the director and trying to make it almost too faithful, even though he didn't completely do that. It was almost scene for scene, and that to a lot of people that made the movie suffer.
Johnny's just mad because they removed the squid.
No!
No, I think that was reasonable, a reasonable change.
Absolutely. It would have come out as hackneyed and B-movie and, like, out of left field, and you would have needed, like, to explain it to people, too. You would have had to have, like, 30 or 40 more minutes of that movie, and it was already pushing, like, 3 hours almost as it was. No, the reason why Rorschach shooting that dude pisses me off is because the very crux of his character at the end is that he's like, he can't put aside the fact that all these people are dying unjustly. He can't do that. It's totally against his moral code. But earlier on in the movie, he breaks that moral code because he shoots a dude in the head. So it's obviously not that flexible.
I just like trolling you about Zack Snyder movies. Because you hate them.
I fucking hate them.
In my latest...
Zombie baby birth, go fuck yourself.
I'm actually with you on that one. The first half of that movie is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then it went totally fucking sideways. Even the ending, where they're sitting at a nice table, everybody's got food, they got candles, everybody's drinking wine, and one dude's like, let's leave. And they're like, why? He's like, man, 'cause I wanna. And they're like, okay, that's good enough for me.
Because there's no conflict in this third act.
Oh, God. Slap that motherfucker. My advice to people who get super upset about these things is to take off your drawers, untwist them, and put them on again like a big boy.
My.
It's no fun if you're, like, mature about this stuff, Johnny.
No, I mean, you know, like, it's... the thing about getting angry about adaptations that I'm always like, in the end, you know, the sensible me comes down to earth and is like, well, what the fuck? Just because I think Zack Snyder's movie of The Watchmen sucked doesn't mean that I can't just go back and read The Watchmen. You know?
Unless they go back and they release a new version that changes all the parts from the
novelization of the movie, of the adaptation of the graphic novel?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-oh. Is that going to happen? That's not going to happen. Nobody's going to do that.
Oh.
I mean anywhere, not like specifically with The Watchmen.
Leon, have you finished Tales of Graces yet?
No. God, are you kidding me? It's like a 40-hour game, and I started it only like a month ago. The way I play video games, I have so little time, but I am playing it. I played a solid half an hour to get today. I like it a lot. For those who, you know, haven't played it, I'm at the point, the early part of the game, like the first few hours, you're little kids, and then it's like 7 years later, and you have to like sort of rediscover all your old friends, and I just started doing that. I rediscovered, Sharia, who is, the friend of Asbel, the sort of main character kid. I ship them so hard, so I hope they end up together.
At the same time, Leon, are you discovering what it means to be a man?
No.
Leon doesn't learn any life lessons from games.
No, I do. Just, I've still never understood how to be a man, if we're talking about, like, manly.
It's easy, just punch things.
I think it has something to do with gravy, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Thanks for that. I make fun of Zack Snyder in the latest Attack of the Trek, so make sure to watch Attack of the Trek, everybody.
And you call Benedict Cumberbatch an iguana.
Yeah, he's some kind
of. That's how you should
iguana.
Market it.
The first time. Yeah, the first time. I'll be perfectly honest. I only jokingly hate Benedict Cumberbatch now because I'm sure I'm sure he's not a monster or anything, and he's actually a good actor. The reason I genuinely disliked him, and now kind of jokingly dislike him, is because the first time I was ever exposed to this person was watching an episode of Sherlock, and apparently it was like the worst episode of Sherlock that there is. I've seen more. I still don't like the show. My wife likes it, so I've seen a few. But this was like the worst episode of Sherlock. It's the one that everyone makes fun of. It's where it's almost offensive.
Chinese one?
No, I don't even remember if it was that one. The antagonist is a lesbian who suddenly falls in love with Sherlock, and you're kind of sitting there watching it like, this is kind of stupid.
At the end, he swords fights terrorists.
Does he? I can't even remember all the details. I just remember that the password was Sherlock.
Yeah. No, the BBC Sherlock show sucks giant balls.
I can't seem to get into it. I have tried a few times because, like I said, it's a show that comes on in my home, so I've seen a few episodes. I have no patience for it. The first time I actually saw Benedict Cumberbatch, he didn't even look real because of how stretched out his face was. I honestly said out loud, it's an alien in a human suit. And that's kind of how I always saw him. I'm trying to get over it because, you know, he's in a lot of movies. He just shows up and stuff now. I was watching 12 Years a Slave and it's like, oh, it's Benedict Cumberbatch. Fine. I gotta deal with it. He's also in the new the latest Star Trek movie.
And he plays Khan!
Spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah, what the hell, man? Don't you know he was
DVD now? And
yeah, I mean that was spoiled. That was spoiled. That was supposed to be supposed to be a twist, but it was spoiled so heavily before the movie was even released. I mean, I think even though looking back on that movie, I don't entirely like it. I think that if I had gone into that movie not knowing that he played Khan and that he was actually the other character he was supposed to be, and then Benedict Cumberbatch looks at the screen and his terrible Alan Rickman impression says, "I am Khan," I would have had a moment where like, oh, I'm watching Wrath of Khan. Oh, weird. That tickles my fanboy funny bone. Okay, cool. This is kind of cool. I'm digging this. And but no, they couldn't keep a lid on that, could they?
I didn't know.
You didn't know going in? Wow, are you serious? That was
it
everywhere.
It was the weirdest thing. Like afterwards, after I saw the movie, it suddenly started like fucking showing up everywhere, but I did not know going in.
Wow, I envy you so much. I would have loved to have experienced that twist. It's like I'm also a huge Star Wars fan, and I think the greatest regret I have as a youngster watching the Star Wars movie is that I already knew that Luke Skywalker was Darth Vader's son, and I just would have loved to have watched that movie and had that moment and go like that, like a little kid. But yeah, I mean, so many great movie moments are because they're just so ingrained in popular culture, and in some cases just because they're spoiled on the internet these days. We sort of miss out on.
Do you like the new Star Trek movies, Leon?
Not especially. I will say one really nice thing about the first movie. As purely as an adventure movie and not as a Star Trek movie, it's fine. It's actually a perfectly competent, space adventure movie. It has some problems, but that's true of almost any movie. Looking at it as a Star Trek movie, I have, all the sort of classic nerdy concerns about what it does to Star Trek. Now looking at, Star Trek Into Darkness just as a movie and not as a Star Trek fan, I don't like it. I think it's sort of a mesh, sort of mixed up movie of sort of confused motivations, where I just couldn't always entirely understand why people were doing the things that they were doing, and it just felt more like a mess. The best thing it had going for it was the fact that the villain was RoboCop. And by that I mean the actor who played RoboCop. I don't want anyone to think, "Oh my God, RoboCop is..." No, it's the actor who played RoboCop is in this. I didn't realize he was in this until I started watching it. And I'm like, "Is that Murphy?" So yeah, that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel.
No, I agree with you. I think they're pretty good. They're pretty good actiony, spacey movies and things like that. But as Star Trek movies, I'm like, meh. So, needless to say, you're worried about the third movie, then?
I'm concerned about the third movie. Apparently, it's going to be, or at least trying to be, directed by Robert. I apologize if I mispronounce his name. Robert Orci or Robert Orci. He's one of the screenwriters for Into Darkness, which does not fill me with a lot of hope. He's also one of those 9/11 truthers, and I think aspects of that entered into darkness. If you look at kind of like the plot, and I'm sort of worried about nutballs like that, not only having a position in my favorite franchise, but merely existing. So I don't know how you guys feel. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I mean, that came up as recently as you guys remember when they did the Ender's Game movie and people were, upset about giving money to Orson Scott Card. Do you let that affect what you spend your money on?
Sometimes that does enter into the equation. Although I will be perfectly honest here, I wasn't going to see Ender's Game anyway. That looked really stupid, and I'm told that it ended up being really stupid. And yeah, I said that someone that controversy exploded on Twitter, and what I said on Twitter was, I refuse to see Ender's Game. ... It looks like it sucks, and that's it. But yeah. Sometimes my politics certainly do influence where my wallet goes. I still haven't eaten at Chick-fil-A in a very long time. Things like that.
In an ideal world, art should stand on its own, but consumers should be as responsible as they want in terms of where they decide to spend their money. So, it would be really nice to say, wow, Orson Scott Card's kind of a dick. I think I still might go see his movie, but yeah, I don't like the guy. Because, is it fair to say that bigotry of the past kind of melts away with great works of art?
I mean,
it's obvious it's a self-evident statement, because for hundreds and hundreds of years, people were unbelievable dicks. but nobody
people still are unbelievable dicks.
Sure, they are, but it's if we're reading a play or a novel that was written in the 16th, 17th century or something like that, and it was clearly, illustrated that the author of which, or the popular thinking of the time, was burn the heretics.
But it's a little different now. And I'm not saying times have changed now. I mean, it's different when you consciously want to support someone who is living now and can benefit from the dollars or the attention you've given this person.
That's the tricky thing.
Someone living in the 16th century probably had some very different ideas that I have right now, and if I read their book, I don't really think I'm supporting this person who has not existed for centuries. So I can, I can kind of shrug and say whatevs. I mean, I can read something by H.P. Lovecraft, even though he was a terrible racist, and kind of be fine with it, because, well, for one thing, I'm never paying to read something by H.P. Lovecraft because everything's in the public domain, but also because he couldn't benefit from it anyway. But it's a little bit different now with with Card and the like.
I mean, that's the tricky part. If that's what I mean, is that in an ideal world, the work of art stands on its own, but I mean, I'm not gonna get all bent out of shape if somebody's like, hey, don't go see Ender's Game, because I didn't, by the way, just in case anybody's like, ooh, that Johnny. Doing those socially inappropriate things like paying money to go see an Orson Scott Card movie. So yeah, I did not do that. But I mean, if somebody decided that they were going to go do it, I'm not going to be like, how dare you give money to the homophobic patriarchy?
Yeah, I mean, people are free to do what they want. It's just, to me, it comes down to money. Like, if I give money to Chick-fil-A, they use it to actively hurt people. But if
that's totally different. I mean, when I say, a work of art stands apart from its creator, I don't want to be like, yes, a Chick-fil-A sandwich completely stands apart from the corporation that actually spends money in the U.S. lobby.
Yeah, but it's like this crazy truther guy who writes Star Trek movies. To my knowledge, he doesn't take his checks and do anything harmful with them. He just believes crazy shit, and he's free to do that. So that's, to me, is the difference.
Yeah. I feel the same way whenever I watch anything that's got Tom Cruise in it. I'm like, oh, I know some of this movie's going to the Church of Scientology.
All right, guys, it's almost time to wrap up. Anything you want to say before we go? You always want to say that. You always do.
It is fun to say.
Austin, anything you want to say, whether it's a cryptid or not?
No, I'm gonna stick with chupacabra.
Okay. Well, chupacabra, everybody. We have to get going.
No,
so
Leon, say it right. Okay, everybody, stay chupacabra.
Stay chupacabra, everyone. Dear God, what have we wrought upon the world?